It's 1 o'clock and I'll call today's meeting to order. I'm going to move on to number 2, acknowledgement of Indigenous peoples. The town of Rocky Mountain House wishes to acknowledge that the land on which we gather is Treaty 6 territory and a traditional meeting ground and home for many Indigenous peoples, including the Blackfoot, Cree, Saulteaux, Stoney, and Métis. I'll move on to number 3. We have an agenda in front of us, and I'm just looking to see if anybody has anything to add to the agenda. Seeing none, Councillor Alderson?
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda.
As presented? Okay, thank you. All in favor of that motion? And that's carried. We'll move on to number 4. We have a delegation, and we have Bernadine Coleman and Deborah Chenard. Welcome. Thank you for taking the time to come and talk to us today. So we have a presentation that we all also have on our computer. So I'm going to turn the floor over to you now, Bernadine and Deb.
Good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Bernadine Coleman. I'm from the Ochis First Nation. My given name is Gapi, which means thunder woman who speaks. I'm from the Ochis First Nation, and my position there is the Economic Development Officer. But I'm here today to speak to you on behalf of the Grandmother Turtle Lodge Collective Group. As you can see in front of you, I have a proposal here for a detox program as a stage 1 substance abuse recovery through the Grandmother Turtle Lodge Collective. I'm known in my community for speaking very loudly and for a long time, so I'll do my best to be mindful of your time here. And I'd just like to say thank you for acknowledging the Treaty 6 territory and our land. That's a real honor to hear that in this at this table. So I'll begin with I'd like to also thank Deborah here for being with me to do the presentation. So I'll get right into it. Acute substance dependency is extremely prevalent here in Rocky Mountain House in Clearwater County, as there is no 30-day safe withdrawal detox center. This is a significant holdback to continuing sobriety, a significant holdback to continuing sobriety is a 30-day abstinence requirement for admittance to rehab centers. Just in addition to that, there is no 30-day detox center in central Alberta, let alone Rocky Mountain House in our area here. Overuse of existing services with individuals cycling through programs with ineffective results that neither address their own or the community needs, nor produce the results to even reach a second stage services like NA or similar aftercare. Substance abusers have a disconnection and a lack of awareness of the harms they are causing themselves, family members, victims, and victim families of intergenerational impacts that ongoing substance abuse creates in the family. The burden on emergency services, medical facilities, the community, local police services, and court services can all be attributed to this missing stage in the treatment process of detox, which is the identification and treatment of acute substance abuse and unresolved and/or unidentified traumas. So our key message here is that healthy community structures and relationships are essential to successful sobriety and healthy, sustainable communities and family structures. So a detox, a first level monitored safe withdrawal space is urgently needed here. A collaborative approach with existing resources is essential for success, connections, and referrals between resources and relationship building. For example, the RCMP, McMahon, FCSS, Friendship Centers, Poundmaker Lodge, Nietzsche Institute, and Kainai Treatment Centers. Later on in the presentation, I'll talk a little bit about those, as our group currently is working to do partnerships with these organizations. Cultural and land-based teachings are necessary in substance abuse programs, as this builds connections between the individual and to the community. So a little bit of background here. First stage treatment, detox, is essential in creating the cohesion necessary between the second stage programs and service providers. Stage 1 treatment, detox, in combination with interagency and community collaboration, aftercare supports will increase the efficiency of all programs and services within the current locale. And by default, this should ease the burden on increased costs on taxpayers, police, medical, and community supports. Increased crime rates, recidivism, due to the ongoing need for those using illicit substances. Substance users self-medicate as a trauma response and isolate due to shame and community reproach, thus preventing identification of root causes of addiction. Furthermore, the administration of effective therapies and applications of detox stage 1 treatment programs are not available within the community. This creates a barrier in accessing the current programs and services, as the requirement for a 30-day detox is not achieved. Indigenous cultural components will be incorporated into programs, providing a foundation to create self-awareness and inner connection for the individual. Following the presentation, I'll be showing you a short video that was produced from a 2016 cultural camp that we did in partnership with the Rocky Historic Site. So that'll give you a sense of what I'm talking about there. Increased personal and community property insurance claims due to damage and theft for those trying to sustain their negative lifestyle choices as a result of reduced education, lowered employment outcomes as a result. Increased suicides, overdose, and homicide related to substance abuse and related impacts. So next step, where do we go from here? So one, project development. So we're here today to get your support because we'd like to commit to have to provide a dedicated space to house approximately 2 people for initial project program development. It is proposed that the small spare office space in either the old post office or other appropriate space that you may deem be rented to our group for a nominal rent for a year-to-year basis to work on, but not limited to, feasibility studies, research, and resource funding. Continue to strengthen nation and community connections along with relationship development. Program delivery. It's our goal to get a detox program in place and operating on a trial basis, and to get funding in place. Our group currently has 2 funding proposals in the queue to government, one for the amount of $500,000 and one for the amount of $200,000. We should know within the next 4 to 8 weeks where those are, but we have a very good feeling that those will be in for approval. Based on the need for a detox center and not one being available here in central Alberta are 2 really big key indicators. We also have partnerships that we're working in letters of support from both the Pondmakers Lodge as a treatment center along with the Kainai Treatment Center down south. So for longer term next steps, Grandmother Turtle Lodge, I'll talk a little bit about the Turtle Lodge as a longer term vision. We hope to build a Grandmother Turtle Lodge in our area, and we'd like your support in doing that as well. That's a longer term vision, and that the Grandmother Turtle Lodge will be developed to act as a wraparound services that will include the following. In it, we'll have a detox center, it'll have a treatment center, it'll have a trauma recovery and resiliency building, healing journey, it'll have physician care, educational awareness regarding addictions, academic referrals, dental care referrals, personal health planning, life skills and personal development, employment assistance and links to resources, healthy families, traditional parenting, follow-up supports for clients, reconciliation training for resource partners. And in conclusion, in our vision, having the detox center and for further, the Grandmother Turtle Lodge Collective Group aims to fill in gaps in current existing programs and services, as none currently exist as a detox center here in our area in Clearwater County. A culturally appropriate program is in place for those wishing, so it's currently in place for those wishing for those components, as there is a strong link for successful reduction in recidivism by incorporating those aspects. Detox and referrals to other resources, healing from trauma and healing treatment plan is developed with clients. Reconciliation training provisions in cultural components for local services providers, for example, RCMP, McMahon, and others like tables like yours. Continuing services and clients. So next, I'd just like to show a short video just to give you a sense of the things that we do and how we'd like to incorporate the cultural component into healing as well. So back in 2016, we held a cultural camp, and we produced a video in doing that. So. Okay, so no, sorry.
Okay.
Got it.
Yeah, you can just bring it up to full screen there. And click on the other.
Some of you are having dreams. Some of you are having visions. The difference between a dream and a vision is a dream, you will always be in your own dream. If it is a creator's vision, you won't be in it. But there will be a feeling that you'll never, ever forget. And that's like a calling that you're supposed to do something. And in this vision, there was a beam of light come down, and then there was this tree started to grow, and then it went through the 4 seasons, spring, summer, fall, winter. The branches fell off, and then the stem, the roots are finally drawn into a horizontal, and they bent into a circle. And first from the north, there was this little ball of light, and it came down, and it dipped to the earth, and attached itself as an eagle feather. And then it went to the south, and kept doing that in the 4 directions until it was 100 feathers. That this invites everybody, red, yellow, black, and white. No one can be refused.
Hearts of all these people have grown so much these past 2 days. And you can see it, you can see that clear. So love Teresa.
Like, I'm going through recovery right now, and it's helped a lot for sure. So I just think it was a really beautiful thing. And he just felt so comfortable, like everybody was able to share their story and whatever they needed to say, and the energy, in the teepee, when we all gathered, it was really, everybody could feel it, they could feel the love.
I've heard stuff here that I haven't heard anywhere else, really, like I've gone to lots of meetings for alcohol abuse and stuff like that, and people just don't open up the same way they do here.
How it all started was from the women's group that they started out at the Chase First Nation. I'm going to continue to heal, and maybe one day I'll be able to teach, and that's my goal. Actually, all the ceremonies are combined. It's just like, it connects you to, if you're like looking for spirituality, that's like, and it's like Bonnie said there, she said that recovery is lifelong.
I'm taking part in the commitment ceremony and praying with the sacred hoop and healing.
Okay.
And I think that when I leave, things will like fall into place, and whatever is supposed to come out of this experience for me. I can say though for sure, being honest with myself.
Sobriety is a daily struggle. Good word to say. And well-briety is something that you can achieve after sobriety. And that again is also, it's a daily thing that you look for. So for myself, that achieved sobriety, I'm on top of well-briety.
And coming together like unanimously, there was no division, there was no segregation of races. Everybody just came together for the sole cause.
What was the ceremony that took place? There wasn't one particular ceremony. It was a combination of all of them. It helped me to regroup, reground myself. Because as a frontline worker, we have a tendency to give and give and give, and it's places, these ceremonies where we come to help ourselves so that we can continue doing the work that we do.
This has just been one of the best experiences of my life, and I've shared so much about connections and family, and just so much healing has gone on here, and I couldn't be more thankful to be a part of this. All the teachings were so beneficial, but I would say the sharing circles are the most important, because that brings everybody together.
sharing that. Thank you. And yeah, that was very uplifting and promising. And I can see the work that you want to do from that short video, so thank you.
Did you want to add anything?
Maybe, because of time, maybe go to questions if that's where you want to go?
Yeah,
I can add some.
yeah, for sure. I just want to say that I've had the privilege of seeing the vision for the Turtle Lodge for this area from Elder Teresa and Strawberry, and it is a real vision, and I can see it happening. So I wish you all the best with that. Councilor Alderson?
Yes, thanks for coming in, for sharing. I appreciate that. Just wondering, you said that you were eligible for certain funding that you've applied for. I'm not sure if you've also applied to FCSS for some funding. To me, it would seem that you could potentially get some funding from FCSS as well, maybe. But I was just curious if you're also looking for more funding, or just simply looking for like a break in rent, which was my understanding, like to be in the post house or something along those lines. So I wanted to clarify.
Yeah, well, to start, it'd be great to get the place to start, office space to work from. But yes, I absolutely welcome any ideas that you could maybe share with our group for possible funding. So we currently have two ladies right now, Corinne Bell and another lady by the name of Tammy Egan, who works with our group, and they're the two ladies that we would be having housed work there, and they are our funding go-getters. So yeah, so we currently have two in the queue that are already submitted, and we're waiting to hear. But yes, we most definitely would welcome any funding, anything that you guys can do to support our initiative would be just absolutely appreciated.
So I do have one more question. And you said that, there really is a strong need in Central Alberta. And could you, you did mention it, but I just want to hear again, where is the closest one currently? If people need a detox like this?
I would probably say Edmonton or Calgary, the bigger cities. I do know that in just speaking with the other treatment centers, so there's currently in Alberta only 3 treatment centers that are open and available. They take in the clients from detox centers. So in Central Alberta and us here in between, Southern and Northern Alberta, there is no detox center available. So the people here would initially, I guess, kind of go to the second stage, because they would take the clients directly from detox into their treatment centers. So having said that, with currently the only 3 treatment centers in Alberta that are currently open right now due to COVID, so the need is great. It's huge in Alberta, right? But here in Central Alberta, there is none, no detox available. Our nations out there, as well as the community here in Rocky, we share the same type things with all the impacts of drugs and alcohol, and just doing my own research, like the costs are huge related to all the impacts, like we're overusing all the police, all the justice system, the medical and health. Those are all overutilized, and having a detox and a place for healing, and this is why we're moving forward with Grandmother Turtle Lodges, that investing in that is going to reduce the cost that we all spend with your town as well as the nations. So that's going to kind of, it's going to start to balance, and I know it will take time, but it needs to start somewhere. And for myself, working and being and having family in the nation as well, it's always been really big and huge for me to have healing in our communities, because I see the effects. I've lived them myself, and I see all the impacts that it has within in all our community entirely. It doesn't matter if I'm from the nation or if you're here from the town. We are all one. We're all human. We all live together. We all share the same spirit and who we are. And all of our families and everywhere, our communities are hugely impacted by drugs and alcohol. And we need to start to build somewhere to build the relationships to actually get initiatives like this off the ground, and they're very much urgently needed. Yeah,
I totally agree with you, Bernadine. We are in this all together.
Yeah.
It affects all of our communities. So, Councillor Fraser?
I just wanted to say that it's amazing to see. We don't have a detox center here in Central Alberta, and then to have you bring forward such just a beautiful message, the collaborative approach, the addressing of the trauma. It's so much more than sobriety, and I love the well-briety term. It's not just not consuming, it's healing, and it's just it's a wonderful program that you have. Thank you.
Councillor Ault?
Just curious, do you have a time frame in mind when you think that the Grandmother Turtle Lodge would be viable?
Well, with these huge grants going in right now, and for me, I want something yesterday. So if we could get something happening by the end of this year and get it absolutely moving forward, we want to do that. And like I said, the missing piece is that detox. That is the first place to start, and that is what is not available. So that's a perfect place to start from. For myself, being from the nation and on the nation, it faces its own challenges out there, and I'm a daughter of Elder Teresa Strawberry, and this was her vision and her goal, and my teachings from her, this is why we created the group. We don't want to wait anymore to not do something. This is why we created the group, and to make something happen, right? So.
She also chose the turtle, which is not the fastest moving animal.
That definitely has its own story, though. The turtle, because we are on Turtle Island in the land, and there's so many beautiful, beautiful stories and a great, great understanding and the history of our people here. The Sunchild and Uchis people came from both Ontario, the East, and from United States. So our two nations out there were the last. Very few of our people went to residential schools because the parents took their kids to try and do two things: to try and keep them out of residential school, to not have their children taken away, and second, they were given a promise that they would not have to go to war. So the parents took their kids for as long as they possibly could, and they ran and took them, and they settled there, where Sunchild and Uchis is now. And Sunchild and Uchis actually were the very last two nations to sign treaty in Canada. So there's a long, long history of Sunchild and Uchis, and something that really, really resonates with me is that Sunchild and Uchis across Canada are the two richest nations, culturally rich, that hold and still have the culture and practice the culture. So, and one thing I find is I go to down to Kainai a lot, and because they have the detox, and as you know, we have a lot of people. I was one of them that actually initiated the drug bylaw for the two nations and made that happen. And it was very, very challenging for me to see all the challenges that placed on our leaders. So I didn't want to stop there. We have to help the people. So the current detox place that was available that really drew to me was Kainai. I went, and to date I've taken probably close to 10 clients there, and watching how they provide the detox service. They do it, they provide medically for those on drugs, so they kind of ease and wean them off, so it's not a huge shock, but the really important thing that resonates with my heart here is that they utilize the culture. They call theirs bringing the spirit home. So it awakens who they are. It brings back the importance of who they are as a person. And it doesn't mean only in their culture. It doesn't matter what color they are. As you've seen in the sacred hoop, it talks about the 4 directions. You see 4 different colors there, the yellow, the red, white, and black. The 4 directions and the whole idea and notion about the Indigenous culture is it does not discriminate any race at all. We are all one people. We are all one spirit, one human, one being. And the idea of giving that person who is lost back self-identity and who they are, that's where it needs to start in their healings, why they're lost. Everyone has their own story, right? And down in Kainai, they utilize the idea of the 7 teachings of our culture to lift up and bring back who the person is. So seeing that it works over there, yes, even also for us as Indigenous people, they're a different tribe, we're a different tribe, but we all work in the same values. Same as we have the same values in Christianity to our 7 teachings. We're all one, so the importance of bringing who we are is so important in that, right?
More of a comment. I can see why you like to talk. You're very good at it. It's a pleasure listening to you. Thank you so much. This is a great presentation.
Thank you.
Does anybody have any other questions? I would really like to have more of these conversations. I believe this is a step 1, and I really look forward to working with you on further discussions and hoping to hear the success of your grants. So later on in our conversation, we will discuss maybe having staff work with you to find a location. So we do have one more delegation right now.
Sure.
You're more than welcome to stay and listen to the rest of our discussion, but it may be about, I don't know, what do you think, half an hour?
Your worship, I think he's scheduled for 2.
Yeah, so
Yeah, so about an hour then.
No, your worship, or if you're talking...
Mr. Price?
Yeah, he's scheduled for 2 o'clock.
I see him in the waiting room right now because he's busy at 2:30, is that correct?
That's correct. Yep.
So can we just move him up then?
Yep.
And then we can have that discussion then a little bit sooner.
So Tammy, if I could just conclude, I just want to say thank you for giving us this opportunity to present. But one last thing, so for right now, I definitely want to work with you all, and we're very, very open to do that. But also, in addition to the asking for office space for our 2 employees for right now, if you could just maybe keep it in your thoughts and minds as to when you're doing your own planning as to where we can possibly think of where Grandmother Turtle Lodge could be. And also the idea of the notion that Grandmother Turtle Lodge will also be given cultural teachings and trainings and knowledge sharing to others, but possibly to think tourism as well. My idea and my thought is that when you drive through Calgary and you see the TELUS Spark Center, I would like to build a huge, beautiful turtle as the outer shell for the building. So just to let you know, to keep that in mind.
That's cool. Councillor Phillips?
It's a great vision, and thank you very much for coming here today. A question for the Grandmother Turtle
Lodge.
What size footprint would you be looking at? How large of a space?
That's a good answer.
Huge, beautiful, and like I said, if you could just vision the TELUS Spark Center in Calgary, the size of that, the lights of that.
When we had, when we hosted with Ochis, the last sacred hoop of 100 eagle feathers, last summer we had about 400 people there. So one of the things that you can see happening in the Turtle Lodge is having those kind of community gatherings, those spaces. It's going to be really, really important to be able to host something that can hold a significant number of people. And then also work individually as well in smaller groups, but something.
Yeah, the idea of it is that, so my mom sits on the Elders Council for North America. So in United States, they do huge gatherings, cultural gatherings in United States. Canada does not have one like that. And if we had like a facility this big, we can host national events and gatherings within that. So that's, yeah.
Yeah, they're big with those, the white bison variety movement, working with those programs. So
yeah, it's very exciting. Councillor Lorraine?
It's just a comment. I love the idea, you're totally destigmatizing the entire addiction illness, and then bringing in healing and community, and I'm fascinated by it, and I think it's just so amazing. And then to talk about a tourism aspect to such a facility, like, I just think it's absolutely amazing and so needed. Absolutely. That 30-day detox is such a barrier to healing that, and if we're not addressing it, let alone in Central Alberta, that is really, really a shame. So I think this is awesome.
And just to let you guys know, the detox center down in Kainai, they started as a 22-bed. They doubled very, very shortly, not even within 6 months, to a 44-bed. And as it stands right now, they are over capacity. The last client I took there actually was my brother, and I felt so bad because they are just so overfilled in that facility. Like, wow.
Yeah, they don't have any barriers either, which is what is hugely important. Like, if you want to go in, you go in, you don't wait. They will find a bed, a mattress, or whatever, like Bernadine is saying, and put you somewhere, right? So, which is a huge barrier for getting into like treatments or anything. There's a huge waiting period.
And if we could do some kind of partnership in that would be just great. Along with Sunchild and O'Chiefs, I have a very good working relationship with both chiefs there. The councils are, share their own challenges, but it's not. That's why we, as a group, decided to get together and do something on our own to make it happen and to push for it. So I can't wait anymore. It's definitely needed.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah,
I agree with you. So thank you very much for your presentation and your passion, and I look forward to talking to you more.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We'll be in touch, Bernadine.
Yeah, for sure.
Please say hi to Teresa for me.
I will.
Okay. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.
So, actually, maybe we'll do a couple of the minutes adopting and then move on. Okay, so we'll move on to number 5.1, to adopt the regular council meeting minutes from November 17th. Councillor Alderson?
I'll make the motion.
Okay. All in favor of that motion? That's carried, thank you. We also have adoption of the special council meeting minutes from November the 25th. Did anybody, Councillor Phillips?
No discussion. I'll motion to adopt the minutes from the November 25th special council meeting.
All in favor of that motion? That's carried. Thank you. Actually, you know what? Well, they're still here. Should we have that discussion?
Sure, Your Worship.
Because we have time. Maybe we can tell them we're going to move to that right now. Okay. We're going to actually move to the 6.1 now. So again, I do have time now. We're going to move right to 6.1. Okay. So I'm going to open the floor for discussion around the presentation of the Grandmother Turtle Lodge Collective Group. Councillor Alderson?
Yeah, just off the top of my head, I think it'd be worth having a really good discussion with FCSS. When they moved from the Christensen Center to the Post House, it was a bit more expensive, with the understanding that some of that could be made up through rent, especially through things that actually made sense to go into the building with them. This to me is a no-brainer. It's an ideal fit. I think they'd have to discuss with the FCSS regarding or town regarding what would it cost for rent, but I think it's a perfect fit to be in with FCSS and Post House. Currently, I hear, the future is to build a giant turtle fort. I think that's amazing. A lodge, yeah, turtle lodge. And who knows? There's future possibilities that I don't think we know today. But just off the top of my head, we were talking about also Kirby was looking for funding for a new Native Friendship Center. We know that in the future we need a new town hall. These are things that potentially could be under the same roof, but that's just kind of. We don't know the answer to that yet.
Yeah, no, and definitely this is the start of a big conversation for sure. So, I agree. I think we should have staff. Can we have staff work together to?
Worship, to accommodate them in the Post House.
Correct. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. And bring that back to us.
Yes.
Any other conversation or comments on that?
I think it'd be great to see you guys in there. I think it's close, central, easy access to, and everybody in the same spot. I think it's a great idea.
And hopefully, Councilor Phillips?
And this goes back to why FCSS was moved into there in the first place, is to find things that would help enhance. This is a perfect fit. This is a great idea.
Councilor Fraser?
I was just curious, the Parks and Rec building, is it still in the market?
We looked at that Parks and Rec building, but I believe for what is needed right now is just two people in town, so it's too large at this point. But I do like the idea of having it in FCSS building. So, okay, so just a motion then to have admin work together with the Turtle Lodge Collective Group to find a location.
I'll make that motion.
Councilor Narang?
Yep.
Any other conversation around that? Okay, all in favor of that motion? Motion's carried. Thank you. So we'll be in touch. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye. Okay, we'll move on to 8.1, the Centennial Campground. Charrette design, final report. Just letting Mr. Price in. Hello, Mr. Price.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor and Council. It's a little bit hard to hear you, and hopefully you can hear me. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can hear you. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you. You sound a bit distant, but I can hear you.
I'm in a
tunnel. Thank you. Yes, new screens are up there.
Yes.
Now, is it okay if I share the presentation, or are you? Whoa, that's going to make me sick.
I'm trying to make the audio better for you, Nick. You can go ahead and share your screen and drive the presentation as well, Nick.
Do you have the presentation in front of you, or can I share my screen to present the presentation?
Please share your screen.
You can share your screen.
Okay.
Thank you. We'd appreciate that.
I'll just make sure I've got all the audio settings. We're crossing platforms between our...
If you can, let me know when you can see it.
Yeah, we can see it now.
Can you all see the screen, the presentation?
Yes, we can see the presentation.
All right, I'll proceed with the presentation if I may. So this is a fairly short presentation. I'm assuming you've all received copies of the full report.
Yep.
And had a chance to look through it. I'd be happy to take any questions at the end of the presentation.
Okay.
Oh, there we go. So I just wanted to always go back to why we started this process. Council at the time was looking at Centennial Campground as an underutilised piece of land and looking at a process to move forward with looking at what would be the highest and best use for the lands. And in doing that, we carried out a design charrette to obtain input from the community as to get ideas in terms of how to meet some of those objectives. So that's really why we went through this process. Through that process, we ended up really coming up with two designs. One is an improved sort of campground layout with a sort of mixed-use community centre. And what I'd like to just speak to is obviously, if you read, we've highlighted all the engagement in the back of the report with verbatim, kept a record of all the comments we received. There were some people who were supportive of the campground, but the majority of people were very much towards trying to just keep it as is. And we'll speak a little bit more to that later on. But the other key factor in terms of this, when we did the pro forma, the indicator is that really from a private sector perspective, this wouldn't be attractive because you're just not going to generate any revenue really from it. The operating costs beyond the income just don't match up from what we did in terms of the analysis carried out there. But it's still an option, and obviously you've got a campground that exists today, and this is a little bit more of an advanced campground. It did look towards servicing, which was some of the comments that were received in the initial SHREC design process. The second option, now this one looked at really meeting that objective of trying to create some more attainable type of housing forms for both seniors, and if you can see my cursor, I'll have to move this over. So these were at ground level, so accommodating around 1,200 square feet, so duplex or joint garages that would accommodate for seniors. This would be more attainable type of housing for the individual. You could change this to townhouses as well to increase your potential pro forma. And then these we're looking at more micro suites type for people like mothers who were single with their children, or people who were semi-retired coming off from the farmland and still wanted to live in the downtown but didn't want their own house. They wanted some sort of maintenance around. And then, of course, we included some innovation here of a multi-purpose centre that people would use. Community garden, this would be a park area, so we're maintaining a level of park. Typical for a neighbourhood park, which is around 3,000 metres squared. And it connected in with this mixed commercial centre. So there's a lot of interaction going on within this small piece of land in terms of both uses, the type of housing typologies, but also creating a mix of the opportunity for a small cafe, maybe a daycare in here, and then the multi-purpose centre and the gardening, the outdoor gardening type of concept, along with the playground in. The key here is also from a crime prevention, through environmental design point of view, getting visibility, so there's clear visibility through here from a fairly active street. Excuse me. So just summary of the analysis, basically you've got around 38 residential units, 40% of the green space was being effectively protected out of the entire area, and you've got a build out area around 49,200 square feet. So in terms of the engagement, while there are a smaller portion of people who were supportive of this concept, the majority of people were obviously not in support of this concept, and that's relevant in the comments that were received. This just gives some perspective in terms of massing of what it might look like in terms of development that we went through in the design charrette. So just in conclusion, and I'm happy to really take any questions afterwards, excuse me. I believe the concept of the mixed housing sort of met, in terms of meeting that diversity of forms and attainability, met Council's overall objective. I think the biggest challenge here is the engagement process was not favourable to the proposed changes to accommodate for residential or even to improve the existing campground facility. There obviously a number of people who just didn't want any change. I think, in my opinion, and I find this quite common, is when we go through an engagement process, there's a lack, you suddenly identify a lack of understanding in the number of areas regarding the challenges that municipalities are facing in trying to meet what I call servicing expectations, along with where's revenue generated from. So what do I mean by that? I mean that you're trying to obviously manage your budget to meet residents' services. Residential typically doesn't pay for the services that people expect to be provided for them. And it's balanced by your non-residential tax base. And depending on that ratio, it makes it more difficult. And it's very hard to increase residential taxes when your capital costs and operating costs continue to climb far greater than your residential tax base as revenue. So that whole story is lost in a lot of municipalities where residents don't really understand that. They think they're paying too many residential taxes and not getting enough services. And I think this is an example where you're trying to look at ways to better utilize your infrastructure to provide for a piece of land that's seen as underutilized. And unfortunately, the community don't see it that way and are very passionate about retaining that piece of land. So there were a number of questions through the engagement process that could also require a bit further analysis from a larger scale than what we were looking at. And one of those examples was around a housing needs assessment. You may have done this, but I'm not specifically sure. So this was a different brand, and again, try and get that across. It wasn't your typical type of product in your marketplace. And it was unique in the way in which it was going to be developed. But there are questions about looking as to whether you need to step back and do some further analysis. The comment was also raised in regards to the sale of the land, and I do know, and we've provided a copy, administration did further research on it. From that research, they brought up a newspaper article that indicated the lands appeared to be given or granted from the kinsman. Part of the agreement was that should any sale occur or beyond using it for recreational lands, that the money from that would be reinvested back into recreational activities within the town. So, it puts you in obviously a very challenging situation, given the input that was received from the community. And it did make it very difficult through misinformation as well that I felt was conveyed. That's hard to challenge in this world when you're trying to be honest and open. There's a lot of lack of trust through the process. And I think that was experienced and identified. But a lot of this links to some of the bigger pictures. So I'd like to take any questions, if I may. I'm going to stop sharing this so I can see you a little bit better, if that's okay.
Okay.
Is that all right, Madam Mayor?
Yes, you bet. Thank you for that presentation. I will open the floor to questions.
Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We're getting plenty of audio when you speak, Mayor.
What happened there? I got knocked out.
I can still hear you. Maybe it was through the sharing of the screen.
I'm not sure he's trying to text.
I'll send him an email.
Is your phone over here?
Yeah, I know he is.
Nick, can you hear us? I see no reason why you shouldn't.
Can you chat? Not through that.
Hi, Nick, can you hear us?
Yes, I can, but I can't see you, and it seems like, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
I just sent him an email.
Can you hear us?
I can't see anything.
Can you hear me
I
now?
can't hear anything. Is anyone there?
Maybe you can type the question.
Yeah, can you type in the chat there? Laura? No.
Your worship, I did send him an email.
Okay.
So I don't know if he's received it.
Can you log off and log on again, maybe?
Okay, Nick.
Yes.
Okay, you can hear me, hey? Sorry.
I can, but I can't hear or see anyone. I'm not sure what happened.
I don't see any reason why there's no...
If you get questions.
Yeah, do we have any questions? Does anybody have any questions for Nick? No. Further to? No. It appears we have no questions, Nick.
There's no questions and I can't see. Well, that's sad. I expect lots of questions.
I think you've answered them all when you've been out here, so.
I can see someone there with a mask on.
Yes, that's me. I'm Laura. I'm running that support here.
Hi, Laura. Sorry. Can council hear me?
Council can hear you just fine. Yeah.
Do you have
any questions? Maybe through you if you want to. I'd love to answer any questions.
Can you tell them that we don't have any questions?
Mayor and council have no questions for you, Nick.
Okay, are they happy with what we've achieved here, or?
Yes, very happy.
Yes, very happy.
And,
okay. All right, is that it? It's always a little different being online here when I can't see anyone.
Yeah. Yeah, just please tell him that he's answering his questions, at that last open house. And I think it was a positive turnout at the last open house as well.
Mayor Burks, thanks you for answering the questions at the last open house and thinks it was a positive turnout at a lot of attendance at that last open house as well in September, wasn't it? Yes.
Was it September? Yeah. Yeah, so thank you very much, Nick, for all of your work.
It's amazing.
No other questions? Okay. We're good. Thanks for joining. Sorry we can't hear you. You can't hear us.
Thank you for joining and apologies for the interrupted microphone situation here.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank council for their efforts and working with us and that of administration, and hopefully we can continue to help and support the town in the future. We've really enjoyed it, so thank you.
Great, thanks, Nick.
Working out interpreter.
Shall I let him go?
Yeah, it's good, yeah.
And I apologize, Mayor, I can't see on my end what would have been causing that issue.
Okay, it just happens.
That's it for today. That's it for today. It's okay.
So we have some decisions to make. Councillor Alderson?
I have a question for Whitney or Dean. We know it costs roughly, if I can remember the figures correctly, roughly $11,000 a year to run, or so, something like that. I'm just curious, like at the moment, if this were to go ahead, how much would it cost to go ahead with these plans? More than the $11,000 up front? So what would it cost?
Your Worship, I think it's a bigger discussion. I guess one for council to select which option council wants to go forward with.
Right.
And the approach that we take. If it's the campground concept, then it's basically us budgeting for that. For the budget discussions, but if it's the larger development, it's really the approach council wants to take, whether we put it out to RFP or we do some initial work ourselves, or...
Okay, Councillor Alderson?
Yeah, and the reason I ask is because I think, these are iffy times, and I just want to make sure that we weigh that factor for a fiscally responsible decision. Like my own personal opinion, just based on what's done, is that we thought we were starting out as an underutilized piece of land, but that's not how the larger community has seen this and feeling. When we actually listen to what they're saying, and of course there's various opinions, but the majority was that there's more at stake than the land. It's about the memories and emotions of maintaining our history. So like the people in the last few years, they've already lost a water tower, which wasn't about a water tower to people. It was about the emotions and the history that was attached to that. So I just think like at this point in time, I would be more willing to accept this as information, that the people want to keep and maintain this piece of land for the history.
Councillor Phillips and then Councillor Fraser.
Personally, I would like to see us discuss this during budget deliberations. Come back with different options. A campground option, option 2. Look at both of them very seriously from a dollar and cents point of view. See which ones make sense, which ones long-term down the road make the most sense. I think this deserves discussion during our budget deliberation this year.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Fraser?
Well, I was just, regardless of which path forward we decide, I think we looked at that space because there are additional issues other than it being underutilized. There are some crime issues, there are some fallen tree upkeep issues, there are some, so I still think it warrants a discussion as to, even if neither of those is the path forward, there does need to be a plan and a path, and it does need to be communicated. So I agree, it does need to go to budget, and we can have a more fulsome discussion of the costs there. But I think this process has shown that something needs to be done with that space to either keep it going as a campground or do something else with that space. The discussion needs to be had, and I do think that doing nothing to it would be a disservice to this entire process.
Any other comments? Councillor Auld?
I agree with Len. I think it definitely needs to be discussed more at the budget, but I also agree with Councillor Alderson that it might just be for information at this point too.
Okay. Councillor Narang?
Just actually a question, maybe for Dean. If council did decide that one of the options that we liked was the mixed-use development, that doesn't stop it from operating as a campground until there's market interest, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Councillor Alderson?
Yeah, I think it sounds like today we're not going to make that decision. But so I think there's further discussion that would be coming out of this. So to me, what Councillor Phillips said is at least we can discuss different possibilities and the financial ramifications or whatever coming out of that. So we can have further discussions at budget. I think that makes the most sense.
Councillor Brown?
Yeah, I agree with that. So more discussion required.
Yeah. Needs to be pretty much general consensus. Councillor Alderson?
I'll make a motion that the Centennial Campground charrette design report be brought to budget meetings and we can determine that funding is required to move the project ahead with the 2021 budget.
Okay, thank you.
Just a comment regarding my alternative. Should it be accept the information and then discuss? Or
yeah,
I might have missed that. So
the council accepts the report
and then
discusses a budget. If we could just modify.
My error, sorry.
That's good. Could you amend that? Or
yeah, I'll just rescind that currently. I'll make a motion that we accept the report.
And then discuss.
Oh, I can do that, okay. Yeah. And that council discusses the Centennial Campground charrette design report at the budget meeting, and then we can determine if funding is required to move the project ahead within the 2021 budget.
Okay. Everybody clear on that motion? Okay, all in favor of the motion? And that's carried. Thank you. Thanks for your presentation, Mr. Schrader.
Yeah, it's easy. What a consultant.
It's 2 o'clock. I'm just going to call for a 5-minute break, please.
I'm just going to sneak into my trunk.
Are the bathrooms functioning again, or is there still a sign that says hold it?
Hold it.
I think that's it's only one person at a time, so you flip it.
Okay, I just saw it when I came in.
Otherwise, it's going to be a longer break.
Somebody in there. Don't need that pens? If you're next to the line, you gotta hold.
Sorry, Ms. Coleman. So it's 2:07 and I'll call the meeting back to order. Could somebody please get the door?
I will, yeah.
Thanks.
We are live again.
Okay, thank you. Okay, 7.1. I would just like to say that I was the one that asked for this to be put on the agenda for today, just because of what's happening out there. And I would like to, we need to stop the spread. That's becoming more and more apparent. So I would like to make a motion to direct admin to bring back a mask bylaw to a meeting on December the 8th, which we don't currently have scheduled because of at our org meeting, we opted to not have a December evening council meeting, but I would actually like to have it brought back and still a December 8th meeting to have this mask bylaw brought forward. Councillor Alderson?
I know it's open to discussion first, but I want to make sure that it's a recorded vote when we have that vote as well.
Yeah, and I would suggest that we have a recorded vote as well.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, Councillor Alderson?
I mean, this could be either a long discussion or a short discussion. I think we know where most people stand on this. For me, I just think we're legally obliged to follow the AHS mandate. So we can't reduce that factor. That's just a reality. And that's the course that we're currently taking. And my opinion is that we should just stick to the current AHS rate mandate and not go above and beyond that.
Okay, my motion is to bring this, to have admin bring, sorry, I'll read it again, because I've written it down. Motion to direct town admin to bring a mask bylaw forward to a December 8th meeting. Is everybody clear on that motion? And that would be further discussion. Is that going to be enough time, Mr. Coase?
Yes, Your Worship. I mean, we can drop the bylaw fairly quick.
Okay.
But just for clarification, the motion said, and that council established December 8th as a council meeting.
Yes.
So
can that be in the same motion?
it can be, but council can also split that motion.
Okay, well, we can split it out to make it, so then I should, or what?
Yeah, you can, so maybe, Your Worship, the first motion would be to establish a council meeting for December 8th.
Okay, anybody willing to make a motion to establish a council meeting for December the 8th? Councillor Narang?
Yeah.
All in favor of that motion? Okay, opposed? Okay.
So just for clarification, Mayor, that's an evening council meeting?
Correct,
7.
yeah.
As normal.
Okay, thank you. And I will make a motion then to direct admin to bring a mask bylaw forward to December 8th meeting.
Just a clarification, this is recorded this month?
Correct.
Great.
Yeah. The last one was as well, I believe.
Okay.
Councilor Grayson?
Are we allowed to discuss parts of the different bylaws that the other places had that might make sense for us? I really enjoyed the Banff one. Seemed pretty flexible for businesses, whether they were doing a barrier, whether they had face shields, depending on what the business was. It was very flexible for the businesses and supportive of how they did their business. And it also kind of backed off when there were places that already had pre-existing measures, like child care centers and the schools. They kind of just left those provincial guidelines in there. I like the flexibility for the businesses. That was in that bylaw.
And I believe also the other bylaws we could look at recently were the town of Whitecourt and the town of Edson have both just recently passed bylaws. So there's many communities our size and a little bit bigger that have also followed this. And I believe they all have a sunset clause. So there's not, it's not a bylaw that's going to last forever. So it's just a temporary measure. Councillor Brown?
Just clarification on the December 8th meeting. That would be for further discussion on the proposed bylaws, and we would be voting for or against that motion at that meeting.
Correct. Okay. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Auld?
I'm just curious how that meeting would go. How would it be a discussion and comparing different bylaws and then take that back to create a bylaw if voted to move ahead with that? I'm not quite.
Your Worship, and I think that's where, I mean, there's a lot of variations to the bylaws throughout Alberta. So, I mean, administration would appreciate some guidance today of how council would like that drafted.
But I guess that's my question, because if we don't want to move forward with a bylaw, how do we, like, do we not need to vote that we need to have a bylaw to begin with, to make the bylaw?
So, Your Worship, so we would bring forward a bylaw for council's consideration for first reading. If council didn't want the bylaw, they would defeat the first reading.
And that would be on the 8th.
That would be on the 8th. We can draft a bylaw that has different options within it, and council could go through it and select options if they so desired.
Councillor Alderson?
Or currently defeat the current motion to even bring it to December 8th?
That's correct, it could be defeated.
Okay, everybody clear?
No.
No?
No, I'm not clear.
So currently, right now, I'm asking to have them admin research a bylaw, looking at other communities such as Banff, Whitecourt, Edson, and put together something that would work for our municipality. And that would be brought, to give admin time to work on a bylaw, that would then be brought forward to the December 8th meeting. And that would require 3 readings. 3 and final.
Well, no, 3 readings for it to pass.
For it to pass, correct, yes. Is that?
So all we're doing today is asking for them for admin to draft a bylaw for us to make a decision about.
Correct.
To consider.
Yeah.
To consider. Councillor Fraser?
I guess if the question here is whether or not we're going to vote on a bylaw, then I guess the discussion of whether or not a bylaw would, like, are we having the discussion today, or are we putting it off until next week? I guess there are some discussions we could have here to give council or administration more direction as to what's happening. To me, when I hear that 87% of cases have no known source and we don't have any contact tracing and we're having a really hard time, we've gone past that 10, we went past 20 cases, we're at 34 cases, which is well over the 50 per 100,000 that was set by the province back in the summer. If somebody goes to a public place right now without a mask and is sick, there is no contact tracing to contact that person. And when that business gets contacted, all of those people that were in that building on that day are now asked to isolate. So we are knocking out an entire business for an entire day because there are people who are not wearing masks with people that they aren't able to connect with and contact trace with. So completely aside from emotional feelings about that, that is, to me, the problem is we have lost the contact tracing battle. And if people are masking for the 15, 20 minutes that they are in that store, that takes that store off of that closure list if that person does test positive for COVID. This 100% stops that business from having to shut down and isolate all of its employees.
Councillor Alderson?
So it sounds like we are really going to open up those kind of worms then. Councillor Fraser has suggested that the spread is because somebody didn't wear a mask. Now I'm suggesting it is because they did wear one, because they were sick and they felt that the mask was actually safeguarding from somebody else getting sick. And I just don't believe that's the case, that it's a false sense of security.
Councillor Narang?
No, I'm good.
So my point of bringing this forward, as I said earlier, was because our cases have more than doubled. And I'm very afraid that, I've heard it said that we will shut the economy down if we do this. On the other hand, my fear is that if we don't do something, the economy will get shut down because we will have another lockdown. And we also have a huge influx of workers coming into our community in January. I would like to see us get, hopefully get our numbers back under control. And if this will help us do this, to me, it's worth a shot to try it. Councillor Narang?
Yeah, I think if admin is looking for direction, I would propose something just simple along the lines of indoor public spaces, if that's what we're then starting from there.
Yeah. Okay. Councillor Alderson?
Just before we start getting into suggestions, to me, it doesn't make sense to have suggestions coming before the vote and the motion on the floor because it might get defeated.
Councillor Narang?
Administration actually asked for direction. I was just suggesting what we would give.
Councillor Fraser?
My concern is that we are basing our actions on the numbers, and when this came up in the summertime, our numbers were at 0, and so the action therefore was that what people are doing in their various methods of controlling the spread was working, and we didn't need further action. The 10 cases, that was set by AHS. That was AHS's guidelines at the time. We have now gone past that. I have no problem if we tie it to case numbers, and if we get our case numbers under control, have the sunset clause kick in. I have no problem with that. But what I do have a problem with is doing absolutely nothing and saying, well, I don't want to upset anybody, so I don't want to put this on anybody, and then we end up with a lockdown when what could have helped control the spread and what could have helped keep businesses open and keep people at work was some smaller cumulative measures as opposed to the big hammer of the lockdown. And who knows, by the time we're at December 7th, this might be out of our hands anyways.
Your Worship, if I may, Councillor Alderson actually brought up a good point. There's a motion on the table, and maybe that motion needs to be dealt with first. And then if it does pass, then admin will ask for direction.
Okay, Renee, do you want to read the motion?
Be it resolved that council instruct administration to draft a mask bylaw and bring it back to the December 8th regular council meeting.
Okay. So I'll call the question. All in favor of that motion? And opposed? Okay. That's right. That's carried. So that motion is defeated. So we do not want admin to bring a mask bylaw forward. And so then I guess we make a motion to cancel the December 8th meeting now. How can we do that? We don't need it.
Your Worship, in light of other matters that the town is dealing with, it might be good to have at that council meeting.
Okay. So we had 5 in favor of that, so we're still gonna.
We're good.
Go ahead with that, I guess. Okay. Good. So we'll move on to number 8.2, the MSI initiative grant allocation.
Good afternoon, Your Worship and Council.
Hello.
We've had previous discussions about this. It was brought to our attention that there's $1 million of MSI grant that is available for application to projects. So I went through our existing projects and there's 2 that we can apply for. Sorry, I'll just back up. Looking at it, it looks like the funds are from about 2018. You are allowed to carry grant funds forward for 6 years, so we're not in any danger of losing it, but it is a good idea to get it caught up.
I think so too.
So when I looked at the projects that are available, I'm looking at projects that are spanning multiple years. The snow dump number 1 and number 2, which are at the operations yard and 52nd Street, they were scheduled to be funded in 2020. There was some small startup amounts, but we've got future years going forward for a total of $709,000 that we can apply towards the MSI grant. And also the 45th Street East frontage is another project, and that's the sidewalk and curbing on just off the highway for $1.15 million. So we can apply up to $1 million for these projects, and then we might use some future dollars as well. So those are the 2 projects that I would recommend that we submit to use up the funding.
I think they're great projects myself to use. Other council discussion? Council Bills?
I think it makes great sense to do this, especially when the money's there. We just want to make sure we use it. Not that the province would ever take it away, but
well, you never know.
Money spent.
Any other discussion? Councillor Alderson?
I'll make a motion the council approve funding the snow dump number 1 and number 2 capital project in the amount of $709,000 and the 45th Street East frontage capital project in the amount of $1,150,400 from the MSI capital grant, with submission to be completed prior to December 31st, 2020.
Okay, all in favor of that motion? That's carried, thank you. Thanks. Okay, we're going to move on to 8.3, the Rocky Pass Senior Membership Report.
Good afternoon, Your Worship and Council.
Mr. Ben.
During the annual service level review, we had discussion about current practices, giving seniors 80 and over free annual Rocky Passes. Council suggestion is lowering that age to seniors over 75. Council also requested a report on the breakdown of Rocky Passes per age group. So we've put together a report for you to consider at this time. So just a little bit of going back on the process we went through. So the current practice of giving seniors 80 and over free access to our rec facilities with Rocky Passes is something that's been in place since at least 2016, when the Christensen Center and the gym was built, but it was not identified specifically in the rates and fees bylaw. The rates and fees bylaw deals with seniors 60 to 79, but doesn't speak to anybody over that. So the practice that administration's been doing is that over 80, you get the free pass to participate in our recreation or use our recreation facilities. So we've provided a couple of different reports for you. The first one in your package, entitled Christensen Center Sport and Wellness, just gives an overview of all of the passes that we have in the system based on the age groups. You can see a total of 636 passes, Rocky Passes, and then it talks about the number of individuals, and the reason that would be different is because of the family passes where you'd have multiple people on the same membership. And then I've highlighted in yellow there those related specifically to the seniors. The next report was have to do with the aquatic center and the memberships there. Again, you can see the breakdown for the different age groups, and then the seniors are highlighted. We have a total of 1,331 various aquatic memberships with a total of 1,382 individuals, and again that relates to the number of people in the family pass categories. So as you can see in the seniors categories, particularly at the pool, the majority of the passes that are sold are 10-time passes. We have currently 17 pool members that are over 80 that have access, and typically they're coming and swimming and not swimming. There's a couple of 80-plus people that regularly attend the aqua size classes, and most of those are for the health benefits, rehabbing injuries, and it's a very low impact type of exercise program that they do. The third report drills a little bit more into the Rocky Pass of 75 and over. And again, we've got a breakdown. So these memberships are as of October 31st of this year. The system, again, that we use will itemize all the people that have a membership in the system. Some of those memberships aren't currently active, but they're still listed as owner in the system. So it was really hard without actually going in and pulling out each individual membership to see whether it's active or not active. So it's a bit of a challenge with the recreation software that we currently have. So we tried to put together, it was a detailed report as I can to bring to you today. So if you look at the age, we currently, as of October 31st, have 29 individuals in our system that are over 80, 33 individuals that are between the ages of 75 and 79, 73 individuals that are between 70 and 74, and 255 individuals who are between the ages of 60 and 69. The vast majority of those memberships results are from the, can I say, younger senior demographic. And then I thought it was important to bring to council sort of what is the financial impact of reducing that age group or giving passes to people 75 and over from the current 80 and over. Looking basically for two things. One is, do we continue with the practice of the 80 plus getting free memberships and including that perhaps in our updated bylaw? And then the second, for council to consider, the option of giving seniors 75 plus, those types of benefits. So we've put together a bit of a calculation on the financial impact of lowering the age for the free Rocky passes to seniors currently 75 or over 75. So we have 361 seniors are entered in the recreation software, 33 individuals aged 75 to 79, which is about 9% of our current registrations. So, I'm using the assumption without drilling down to each individual membership and seeing what that cost was. So we did the assumption that 9% of their total revenue, and we're using 2019 numbers because 2020 is really hard to determine. So 2019, we had a total revenue for Rocky passes of $24,270. Taking 9% of that, we're looking at just over $2,100 estimated cost of what it would cost to provide this demographic with free Rocky passes or pool passes. Does anybody have any questions up to this point? Okay. And, again, so depending on the direction council wishes to go, those numbers could vary based on the number of seniors in an age category that would increase. And when people learn that, well, now if I'm 75 over, will that see an influx of people coming in asking for those free memberships? It was interesting to note that when these further, most current COVID restrictions, we've actually sold additional memberships to the gym and to the pool because those facilities are open and many of them were individual types of things. So our fitness center manager also highlighted just a little bit about the seniors programming. So the current rates and fees bylaw calls for seniors classes to be a 50% cost recovery. Senior programming is typically about $7.25 a class for drop-in, or if you sign up for a full session, typically 4 classes, it's about $5 per class. The instructors make approximately $40 per hour as a contractor, and to cover those costs of 50%, we would need about 4 registrations. Typically the class is anywhere from 3 to 12 registrants. The most popular for that older senior demographic is the chair yoga program. Again, sort of a gentle fitness. And currently we have 2 seniors who are over 80 that regularly participate in that class.
Sorry, I do have a question just regarding that. I can wait till the end though if you'd like.
Okay. Yeah, so again, trying to present to council sort of some of the options. Certainly the way with our current operations, our fitness center supervisor, the seniors typically need that greater education in how to use the equipment and how to do it safely and try to garner that. So Lisa is providing that orientation as requested when people purchase memberships or somebody new coming to the gym. I've got several alternatives there for council to consider, but at this point I'm willing to take any questions you may have.
A comment and a question. So I think that reducing the age from 80 to 75 to me makes sense because it's very minimal impact to the town cost, but it's a really big impact on the community for a couple of reasons. One, obviously keeping loved ones, friends around longer is a big deal. But 2, I think the longer somebody stays around and is healthy, the more money that's going back into the community. So that's a really great thing. That might have to be reconsidered if people are living to the age of 150, but right now I think this makes sense. I think it's good for the community. My question though is around the contractors, and you were mentioning, right now they're around the $40 mark. Is there contractors that you've talked to that are willing to work for a lesser amount, a $30 mark, and maybe then you only need 3 people that fill up the class? Just a thought. I have no clue if that's even possible, or maybe it's because they have to pay a certain amount of rent when they're doing that, so $40 is the break even, or a small profit.
Yeah, I believe that's sort of when we're looking for contractors, it's what is financially for them to make a go of it. I mean, at some point, I think fitness center supervisors I can't find anybody to do it. Bless. This is the cost. We used to do some of those programs in-house, but when we did the change, this is sort of the cost of doing business, and it's an effective way to do it.
Any other comments, questions? Council's wishes? Councilor Fraser?
I think, especially considering the year that reducing the burden on seniors staying active and healthy is a good thing. Whether it's 75 or 80, I think having them stay active and in our community and not feel, segregated, I think that's a wonderful thing to do for fairly minimal cost.
So if I may, the recommended alternative speaks to, I guess, that the service level retreat council suggested giving, free monthly memberships that did not include the fitness classes. I've included that as an option for the council were to choose just to give everybody 75 and over, free annual pass. It would be less administrative work, so instead of renewing those annual or monthly memberships. But again, that's, there's the financial impact as well. It's, in the grand scheme of things, I believe in talking with our fitness center manager, she said, you can give those away, but how many actually take advantage of that? I think certainly the pool, a lot of them come in and they do their own thing. They're actually swimming, they're using the hot tub. Some of them will, or some of them won't take advantage of the aquasize classes. It's the same for our fitness classes. Some of those numbers are a little skewed because it could be one or two individuals that come in daily. So when you look at the total number of visits, yes, we have all these members that have the ability, but certainly in the gym, there's two elderly gentlemen that are there almost 6-7 days a week. They come in, as a parent, they're there every day, working out and doing their best to keep themselves healthy and active.
Councillor Brown?
Yeah, I think the recommended alternative definitely is the one that I'd be looking at this point. I think the step from 80 to 75 is a good incremental move. I actually think, given, as you commented on, the actual number of people that are going to participate in this, I would like at some point in time to be able to consider moving that age down to 70. But I think at this stage of the game, 70 is too much of a leap from 80. So I support the 75 with full meal deal.
This one, the recommended alternative, the alternative does not include classes to seniors over 70.
Includes fitness and aquafit classes to seniors over.
Yeah, that would be alternative number 2 if you wanted to consider that. But I chose alternative 1 because that was the direction that council came with at the service level.
Right. Okay, yeah, I was reading it wrong. Okay. Any other comments or questions? Councilor's wishes? Councilor Phillips?
If we're done with the discussion, I'd like to make a motion that council approve the current practice of offering free annual Rocky Pass and swim memberships, which includes fitness and aquafit classes to seniors over 80 and direct administration to offer free monthly Rocky Pass and swim passes that do not include classes to seniors over 75 years of age. Is that correct?
Well, actually, I think it would be alternative number 2. Above would be if you want to do, everyone over 75 with all of the benefits of the annual Rocky Pass.
Yeah, and I stand corrected on my comments.
So I'd like to amend that motion that council make a motion to approve anyone over the age of 75 for free Rocky Pass, swim passes, and fitness classes.
Okay, everybody clear on that motion? Okay, all in favor of that motion? Okay, and that was carried. Thank you.
We'll have some happy seniors that are,
good.
79 years old that are waiting to get that.
Merry Christmas.
Okay, moving on to number 8.4, the rec facility COVID-19 restrictions report.
Okay, I'm back here again. So continue on. So again, we're all aware that on November 24th, the province announced additional COVID-19 restrictions, which have an impact on the community. In particular, some of the restrictions further resulted in changes to the operation of our rec facilities. So in this report, I'm just sort of bringing you sort of a breakdown of how it's impacted each of our facilities and the direction that our staff are currently moving forward in our operations. So starting with the Lou Soppet Center, it's closed for bookings that are not business related. The kitchen is still available for booking, because that would be more of a business opportunity. Excuse me. The pickleball and badminton courts are not available at this point. That's a group sport that is not permitted at this time. The child play space at the Christensen Center is currently closed. So the provincial health measures did indicate that indoor fitness centers, recreation, sports, and physical activity centers, including dance, yoga studios, martial arts gymnasiums, and private and public swimming pools were allowed to remain open at 25% occupancy. And the facilities can be open for individual studio time, training, and exercises. There can be no group fitness or group classes, group training, team practices, or games. Instructors can use the facilities to broadcast virtual classes from there. So the fitness center currently can remain open for its regular hours. The fire code for that facility is at 180, which is broken down into 60 for the fitness center, 60 for the dance studio, and 60 for the Apple Fitness Room. We can currently have 25% occupancy, which would be 45 people. We're currently, when we've got our equipment spaced out, taking a maximum of 20 people at any one time into the gym. And the process of coming in, checking in, users are wiping the equipment down when they come and use each piece of equipment. And that process seems to be working quite well. Our fitness classes have all been canceled. Probably looking at starting up in January after the break if we're permitted to do so. And again, just a comment from guest services that since the restrictions were announced, that they actually had an increase in Rocky Pass sales. From an arena operations side of things, our guest services supervisor and arena manager put together a bit of a report here for you. Again, no team sports or activities are permitted in the enhanced zones as of November the 27th. I did go through a little bit of how it's impacted each of the various user groups. They've all indicated that, should we get below the threshold of 10, the current guideline states that we would no longer be in an enhanced zone. We would be able to reopen or resume operations. The only one of those groups just to change is the Rocky Figure Skating Club. For their older skaters, they do one-on-one training, which is permitted. So they will be booking some ice, not the full amount that they would normally have for their program, but they have started again this week with doing individual training sessions. The other change that we've made is started with the arena being open the same hours as the gym. We're taking pre-registered public skating sessions, and that was started on the weekend. We currently have them in 1 hour blocks of time with an hour in between for our staff to get in and clean. And so we have about 6 sessions a day over the weekend. It worked fairly well. People calling in, reserving their time. I believe the largest of those sessions, we had 18 people on the ice. When we look at our maximum limit of 100 people, 25% of that, so we could have up to 25 people on the ice. Our facility attendants and the operators are monitoring our users for the social distancing that would be required and doing the additional cleaning. So far, according to AHS guidelines, that's what we've put in place, and it seems to be working for now. We're going to monitor that, obviously, for the next couple of weeks to see what impacts that has. So we've done that on the Quick Lane Arena. We've got all those blocks of times. The Bunch Arena we're making available if a family wants to book just their household, a private booking, because they're permitted to do those things. One of the downfalls of that is the cost. For a small family group of 4 or 5 people to want to book the ice, it's $100 an hour currently. So our guest services supervisor was able to do a little research and found that, as an example, the town of Sylvan Lake has made the decision that during this time for those family bookings, that they've reduced their ice rental fee by 50% to allow for that, small individual group. Right now with the public skating, there's no sticks, there's nothing, you just come out and you skate. But if you did a private booking, then if the family wanted to do your sticks or those types of things, they would be allowed to do that as part of their individual rental. So we are certainly really conscious from a staffing perspective of what that looks like, and we're monitoring that, and so I've then identified that in the financial side of things as where possible. We're looking to offset the lost revenue by monitoring and reducing staff schedule based on activities. In particular, our casual staff, if we don't need those staff into the evenings, we're just not booking them at this point. One of our permanent full-time people are still working and doing what they need to do to keep the facility clean and keep it open. From a pool perspective, also just again, a report put together by our pool manager, so they're able to maintain the current scheduling. One of the challenges is with the lessons, they were 3 weeks left in getting the lessons completed. So they've been able to transition those lessons into private lessons instead of the group lessons, and book each of those students into their own lane. And so they've got that in place. Attached to the report was the two schedules for the pool, one until the end of, I think October the 18th, and then we'll move into an early Christmas break sessions. They're still booking all of their swim programs, pre-registered, and that's not a large change from what we had implemented previously, and it seems to be working. Our normal capacity for the pool is 230. 25% of that would be 58 patrons. Talking with the staff right now, they're looking to a maximum of 45 people in the pool, and that seems to be again working well with it. Over the weekend, since these new measures, they didn't have that many people in the pool at any one time. But they spread out the public swims throughout the day to give people greater options of when they can come, so that not everybody's coming to the pool all at the same time. And so again, working within those guidelines set out by the province of the 25% occupancy, we've been able to keep things going. The length swimming remains the same. People are pre-booking their lanes and their swim times. As I mentioned about the lessons, they're doing that. The only one is the parent-taught lessons. What they've done is offered them the choice of doing a free family swim pass to cover the balance of what was left in their lessons. The swim club, they've transitioned into a group, into the swim club members individually are booking lanes. They don't have a coach with them on deck. They have their lesson plans, and they're giving that to them virtually, and then they can come in and do their training just by booking a lane. So administration, we're working closely with our user groups to help them interpret the new enhanced public measures. Lots of questions. I mean, the government document is one thing, but then we have to sort of interpret how that works for our operations. I think everybody's been so far working well, and we're able to keep our facilities open to this effect. I know some communities have closed their facilities altogether, but this is sort of a direction based on, I guess, how we interpret the government's guidelines. So again, the administration is just recommending that the above operations in this initial stage of the town be enhanced with the new restrictions. And since it's a fluid situation, we'll monitor this over the next couple of weeks, and then if there is a change, we can bring it back perhaps to the December 15th council meeting, if I think that's a direction the council would like. So a couple of alternatives there for you. So the recommended alternative, the council accept this as a operational report.
Mr. Mint, I just want to know, right now, currently as it stands, public does not have to wear a mask in our facilities, correct?
Correct.
But our staff do.
Our staff have been wearing masks when we're not at our desks and we're out in the public. We are currently wearing masks.
Right. Is there a consideration that that would make it better to have masks on in the public facilities?
My staff haven't expressed any concerns that way. So at this point, we're following directions that we've been given that when we're not at our workstations, we're wearing masks.
Okay, thanks. Councilor Olson?
Yeah, I was just going to say that you have the big guards up there at the stations. So when you're behind your desk, there's also this big plastic shield. And I know it's certainly not something that the majority of the patrons want when I'm there. There's very few people that actually wear a mask there, but they do distance.
Any other questions? Council specialists on this? Councilor Alt?
I was just going to first say thanks very much, Wes, because you guys have done a lot of work there and keeping it open for the public. I think it's been well received and appreciated, so thank you. If it's be resolved that council accept the rec facility operations report and operational plan as presented.
Okay, any other comments or questions? All in favor of that motion? And that's carried. Thank you. Thanks. So we're going to move on to number 8.5, and I'll turn this over to Ms. Hartman.
Thank you, Your Worship. Mr. Proust asked me to be quick, so I'm going to get right to it. Legislation requires that council authorize through a resolution the returning officer and the substitute returning officer for the election by June 30th, 2021. However, because of the changes to the Local Authorities Elections Act, we can start accepting nominations January 1st, which actually technically would get bumped to the 4th because the 1st is a holiday. So I thought I would bring the resolution forward for the returning officer and the substitute returning officer, and I've made a recommendation in my report here.
Any questions? Council Specialist? Councilor Phillips?
I'd like to make a motion that we appoint Renee Hartland as returning officer and Laura Button and Marina Kulich as substitute returning officers for the 2021 election.
Everybody clear on that? All in favor of that motion? That's carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to number 8.6. Ms. Hartman?
Okay. 8.6 is for the advance vote. With the considerations of COVID, I've made a recommendation for 2 advance votes rather than 1. Municipalities over 5,000 have to have an advance vote. It's under section 73.3. And it must not be held within 24 hours of election day. I've provided a couple of dates there, as well as some considerations with respect to COVID. And I'm open for questions or council's discussion on this and direction in the same regard.
Councilor Alderson?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I mean, we need to pre-plan having a couple of dates, potentially. Who knows what happens by then, but right now, having 2 advance votes makes sense to me.
Is that your motion?
It wasn't a motion, it was a comment. Looks like Len is getting his arm ready for motion, so.
I just had a comment as well. Just looking at the dates for October 7th from 4 to 8 and October 9th from 11 to 3, is that enough of a time frame on a day for advance voting, or?
October 9th is 10 to 8. 10 a.m. to 8 p.m.
To 8 p.m.
I was reading wrong.
Just the first one is 4 to 8, but the second one's 10 to 8.
Yeah, the one on the 7th is a weekday evening, and the one on the 9th is a weekend.
Okay.
Councilor Alderson?
I'll make a motion that council approve the advance vote for election 2021 on both the evening of Thursday, October 27th, 2021 from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. and on Saturday, October 9th, 2021 from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. at the Lusaba Community Center.
Okay. All in favor of that motion? And that's carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, 8.7. Election institutional voting station.
Thank you, Your Worship. So again, the Local Authorities Elections Act requires a resolution of council to authorize the returning officer to designate institutional voting stations. In consultation with the CAO, legislative, and myself, it's typically the municipality has designated Westview Lodge, the Good Samaritan Society, Park Avenue at Creekside, Columbus House, and the hospital as facilities that have received institutional voting stations. Just a comment from the by-election is with regards to the hospital, we had only approximately 3 votes from the hospital at the by-election, so I just wanted to put it forward to council whether you still want to continue to offer that, or if you want to consider removing the hospital from the institutional voting station. Of course, and as mentioned in the report, you know, there are COVID considerations. We are prepared to revisit, you know, some of these things should COVID, you know, should we see increases to COVID. However, at this point, we're going forward as you know, as we would with any election, and just looking for council's consideration with regards to the hospital and the recommendations for the institutional voting stations.
I personally would like to see it remain at the hospital. I think it's important. Okay. Councillor Brown?
Yeah, I would like to see it at the hospital too. I'm just curious where in the hospital it would actually be located.
Well, I think that will depend on where the COVID regulations are, like where the restrictions are at that time, but I think for the by-election, it was held kind of in the front area.
Right in the...
Yeah, and maybe Lawrence.
In the by-election, the deputy returning officer that was dispatched there actually went room to room.
Yeah.
Sorry?
Went room to room.
Oh.
Yeah, we don't expect we'll have the same access in the fall, in which case, in years past, it's also been set up in, not in the front lobby, but kind of near the nurse's station for the inpatients.
And you're required to have two officers there, or 2 deputy returning officers.
So in the past, so it has been used in the past?
It has been, yes.
And it was successful? No.
It's never garnished a lot of votes because, of course, not everybody who is an inpatient is otherwise a town resident, right? So it will really depend on who's admitted on the day of the election.
Phillips, Councillor Alderson?
I would love to see the hospital stay on it. You never know how long someone's going to have to be in the hospital for. They could be there much before the advanced polling right through the election itself. So even if it's only one person, I would still want to see that one person receive their right to vote.
They required to have 2.
We would go to room. It wouldn't be like it's a station open for a period of time.
Okay.
Because in the hospital, there's only, they can't come to you anyway, typically. And there's only going to be so many eligible voters in there. It'd be room to room.
Okay, so that, and it could be totally changed by then anyways. Yeah. Councillor Alderson?
Yeah, I'd like to see it kept at the hospital as well. I wouldn't want to base numbers based on by-elections, which naturally get lesser people voting, and especially because this community has had 2 by-elections in the last few years, so the next election is not a by-election, so I think it should stay.
Councillor Narang?
I'm just curious, is there a is there a limited number of institutional voting stations that we can have? Like, I'm just thinking about maybe like Sandcastle Court, Meadowview Estates, those adult, just because of the COVID pandemic, if we should increase the number, is that?
Your worship, I think that's something we can address probably closer, if I'm correct, because it means more manpower.
Sure, okay, yeah. It is something that we can add if we need to, though, kind of thing. Okay, cool.
Okay. So I just want to clarify, so at the hospital then, you go at a certain time, like you would say, so your institutional votes would be the one day you go from hospital to...
That's exactly right.
Okay.
There was a schedule, and we worked with the site administrators.
Okay.
We're there from 10 to 11 and then 11:30 to 12:30 at each of the sites. So there was 2 deputy returning officers dedicated to the institutional vote, and they went from site to site that day.
Okay, thanks for that clarification.
We are required to advertise at the facility as well, like in advance, so they know when we're coming.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
other questions? Councillor's wishes on this? Councillor Brown?
As long as there's no more discussion on it, I'd like to make the motion that be it resolved that council authorize the returning officer to designate Westview Lodge, the Good Samaritan Society, Park Avenue, Creekside, Columbus House, and the hospital as institutional voting stations for Election Day on Monday, October 18th, 2021.
Okay. Are we clear on that? All in favor of that motion? And that's carried, thank you. And now we'll move on to 8.9.
8.8, Your Worship.
8.8. Election special ballots.
Thank you, Your Worship. Under Section 77 of the Local Authorities Elections Act, it outlines the requirements that need to be met for a special ballot. Special ballots are used for an elector who is unable to vote because of a physical disability or for those who may be absent from a local jurisdiction. Considering that Council has approved the advance votes and the institutional settings, I don't believe that this would be necessary. The municipality has not received any requests for special ballots. There are two, like I said, the two advance votes. The voting stations have accessibility. I did make a phone call to West Country Services earlier to ask about people who were not able to leave their homes, and it was indicated that there are none. You know, all of them, if they require support, are able to get out of their home. And offering all of those opportunities, I think, would be sufficient. There are a number of, I've also got another RFD that I'll be bringing forward regarding elector at home. I am waiting to talk to AHS Home Care on that, and that may address people that have disabilities that are unable to leave their beds, so to speak. So. Looking for council direction on this special ballots.
I think you've covered everything in the last two. I don't know if the work going into this one would be beneficial.
It's quite from my understanding, it's a process. So they would have to submit, you'd have to send them an application. They go through the forms, answer the questions, then you have to make a decision whether they would qualify for a special ballot, and then they would have to have it mailed in with date identified. It does open up, potential for some problems if there's problems with the mail system and their vote is not received on time. There's the potential for things to open up. Now, that being said, again, going back to COVID, I did make a phone call to Municipal Affairs, and, depending on where things go with COVID, there may be an expand, but I don't know if they'll expand a definition under special ballots or do something like that to try and accommodate different methods of voting. But at this time, as with the previous RFDs, I'm just going forward with plans for the election as is until we hear further.
And this may all have to be rediscussed anyways.
That's right, yeah.
So, Okay. Councilor's wishes?
What happens if we don't do this today? How much time, how much room is there to accept this? Or if we just accept the information, but later on we go forward with this potentially, how much time is required to make this legit?
I'd have to look it up. I know that the only thing that really was recommended that we bring to council before the end of December is the returning officer. Mm-hmm. And I'm also working on a bylaw for the election, which would include, I guess, if we, council wanted to proceed with special ballots. I've got to call into Municipal Affairs because I have questions with regards to deadlines in terms of, because they say in some regard that special ballots just has to be done prior to June 30th. However, there's bylaws that need to be set in place prior to much before June 30th. So
So just for clarity, the date is June 30th?
Yes.
For special ballot, so we could always bring back a bylaw for amendment if that's the case before June 30th.
Councillor Alderson?
I just think currently there's a bit of unknowns still. My preference would be to accept today as information, and then I don't know if that means if you could bring it back still, or we'd have to let you know to bring it back. If you felt once we have all the information, it might be worth bringing back again for us.
Your worship, no, I mean, if situations change and there's validity to it, administration would just bring it back.
I'll make a motion that council accept the vote by special ballot as information today.
Pretty clear on that motion? Any other conversation? All in favor of the motion? And that's carried. Thanks. That's all we have for election, right? Okay, so on to 8.9, Healthcare Professional Recruitment Committee discussion. Yeah, okay. We had discussion around the service level review about removing counselors from this committee, and I have a suggestion because it is now turned into a healthcare recruitment committee as opposed to just physician. I still see the need to have representation on there. However, it is actually the town members at large that do the work. And so I would suggest we replace our 2 council members with 2 members at large, because we had lots of interest with the council members at large from the community. And as I said, they're the ones that are doing the work. And then we would have asked the committee to come present to us once or twice a year, especially before their budget, before our budget, and we'll be able to ask them any questions at that. Councillor Phillips?
I think that's a great idea, to have public members at large as opposed to council members on there. My only question is, as of yet, the vote from that committee hasn't happened to make it a committee of Chamber of Commerce. Does that need to happen first before we can do that, or I don't know how the timeline?
No, I think we can reach out to them and have them change their terms of reference to remove the 2 council members and have 4 town members at large as opposed to council. Councillor Alderson and then Councillor Brown.
Yeah, ditto to what Councillor Phillips said. Also, I'm assuming the 2 members that are currently on there, who, until that change occurs, they would continue to go. Because there is a healthcare committee tomorrow evening. And so I'm assuming that still council would be representing at this point in time.
I don't know that we would need to. If we just give them notice, we could, I think, reach out straight away to our public members at large and possibly see if they're still interested in representing the other ones that we didn't. So Councillor Brown and Councillor Narang.
Yeah, I think the idea, the suggestion is a good one. My only ask is that we be specific in what we ask them to present when they appear before us. And I'm specifically thinking of not only the budget, but a strategic plan going forward.
Sure. Okay, that's good. Councillor Narang?
Just concerned if our members not going to the meeting would affect their quorum if they had decisions to make at all. That would be my, if there's a meeting tomorrow.
Okay. Councillor Alderson?
This is exactly what Councillor Narang said, but that was my only concern because it's such short notice that they might not make quorum and they haven't read the agenda or anything like that. That being said, it is going to be a virtual meeting for everybody, so it's going to be easy to attend if members at large are able to be there that quick.
Okay, Councillor Fraser?
I think it's a good move. It helps to depoliticize that entire committee, and so they can focus on, recruiting healthcare professionals to Rocky. I guess I just want to make it clear that this isn't us removing ourselves from the committee because we don't agree with it. We just want to get out of their way so they can, so it doesn't, and that we are still supporting them.
For sure.
Financially as well. This isn't us removing that.
Yeah, definitely could make that clear to them for sure.
Yeah.
Now more than ever, I think this is an important committee and they're doing very good work. As I said, it's not council members that are doing the work though.
Yeah.
And I think that we bring them here once a year and listen to their outcomes. Councillor Phillips?
Mike, again, just going back to the fact that the meeting is tomorrow night, for adding the 2 extra public members at large, is that something that has to come back and be done by council resolution?
Well, we can do that right now.
Yeah, so your worship, what I would recommend is the 2 councillors actually attend tomorrow to at least explain to the committee of council's decision, and that also gives us time to contact the
members at large.
That's what I was getting at, and also it creates a quorum problem if 2 of us aren't there and these other 2 members aren't appointed yet. It could create a quorum problem, especially if the vote is going to be for moving it to a committee of the Chamber of Commerce, we need a quorum to make that vote. That was my only concern.
Yeah, and we've heard that concern. So we'll have the 2 members go tomorrow night, and then that will be it. So does that mean now, Councillor Alderson, you are going to that meeting?
Yes, I am attending. I've let them know that I'll be attending tomorrow evening so far. Unless today had changed that, then I would have let them know there wouldn't be. But they're aware I'm going.
And I'll be attending as well.
Okay, so make the motion that we remove our 2 town council reps on the healthcare recruitment and retention committee, or not remove, replace them with 2 town members at large. That sound okay?
Yeah, your worship, just a consideration going forward, you might be ask them to have a term as reference that it's a council member or delegate, then that always leaves it up to the option of council.
Oh, okay.
If there's a shortage of public members, then at least a councillor can attend.
Okay.
Just a suggestion for council.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Renee, did you get that?
Yeah.
Do you want to read it back or no?
Be it resolved that council replace the 2 town council members that currently sit on the healthcare professional recruitment committee with 2 public members at large serving as delegates to, or I guess I can reword that so it's Councillor, I'll have to reword it, but the gist is to have council members be allowed to have delegates attend on their behalf. So as public members at large. So it's not really replacing, it's...
Yeah, your worship, so it's just a request to the committee that the draft their terms of reference, that it be 2 council members or their delegate to the meetings, and then council would just delegate that to a public member.
Okay. Good with that?
Makes sense.
Councillor Brown?
Make that motion.
Okay. All in favor of that motion? Okay, that's carried. Thank you. So do we then have to make any other motions regarding the councils that are on there now, or just?
No, your worship, so if they draft their terms of reference to that standard, and then council would just appoint public members.
Okay, sounds good. And then we will reach out to those other public members that were interested in this committee. Okay, perfect. Thank you. So, how's everybody doing? Do we need a break? No?
I'm good.
Moving on to 9.1, correspondence for action. Recognition Tree Program request from the Thank You family. Am I turning this over to? Well, we all have the letter in front of us. What are council's wishes? Councilor Fraser?
We did the walk of service with the trees on there, so he was the mayor. I don't see why we wouldn't put a tree for him. Is there a reason that he was?
So, Your Worship, for explanation, so when this policy came in place, he was a past mayor, right? So the policy was a go-forward policy in 2012, so it didn't apply to any previous mayor or council members. So the request doesn't fit the policy, so that's why it's coming before council.
Councillor Alderson?
I'm on board with that. I think that, a mayor takes on a heck of a lot of burden, and to be recognized with a tree, which is good for the community anyhow, is great. I'm actually wondering, since that policy is not that old, and really we haven't had tons and tons of mayors in Rocky, if it's possible for admin to look into, I think, it's okay to put more trees in the community anyhow, so along there, possibly representing every mayor that we've had in Rocky. I don't know if it has to be all done at once, but over the next few years, I just consider the financial impact of that, to do something like that, for recognition of all past mayors.
Yeah, Your Worship, so we would have to research and bring that back to council.
Yeah, just in regards to this particular request, he put himself out there. He served the community for terms as councillor and 2 terms as mayor. I think this is something fitting that should happen.
Councillor Brown?
Yeah, the amount of work that goes in, and personal time that goes into being a mayor, being a councillor, but mayor in particular, I think it's worthy of recognizing that. So I have no problem looking at the possibility of amending the policy at some point.
Any other councillor?
I'm on board with that too.
Okay. Councillor Phillips?
Would we need to amend the policy or just make a motion for this particular request?
Your Worship, so there's 2 issues that council brought up. One is to deal with the request today, which could be done just by resolution. And then another resolution, if council so desires, is that administration bring back an amendment to this policy to incorporate all previous mayors and the cost with that.
Yeah, I can wait till the administrative inquiry perhaps, if that's a better timing, but I'm just looking, at least for us to have the information brought back, because it might not be something that we choose to do, but the financial impact, so we can make a decision then. Yeah.
Councillor Fraser?
So I guess I will make the first motion to plant the tree for Mayor Jim Baggy. Is that what we're looking for one? And then, yeah, I will make that motion.
Okay. Everybody's clear on that? All in favor of that motion? That's carried. Councillor Alderson?
I'd like to, is it a motion or just directing administration?
A motion, I think, because we're looking at amending the policy.
A motion to amend the policy, or bring back the policy amended so that it allows council the possibility of planting trees for all past mayors. I don't know if that's the best wording, but maybe Renee can help me with that.
I think there'd only be 4 other ones.
Yeah, it's not I don't think it's a huge, there's a few.
But it only goes back to 38, so I don't know if there's...
We had one mayor for quite a long time, so that's...
We'll research and bring back.
Thank you.
Okay, is that motion on the table? All in favor of that motion? Okay, and that's carried. Thank you. So, motion to accept 10.1 to 10.8 as correspondence for information. Mr. All in favor of that motion? That's carried. On to number 11. Anybody have any questions about my report?
Busy. Busy.
Okay, I just need a motion to accept that report, please. Councillor Phillips? Okay. All in favor of that motion? That's carried. Thank you. Councillor reports? Anybody have any questions on the councillor reports? Okay.
I'll make a motion to accept them, since I didn't even submit one. That would be my contribution.
Okay. All in favor of that motion to accept council reports as written? Thank you. It's carried. Moving on to the action list, number 12.1. Anything pointed out or changed? Scratched off. Added. Okay, seeing none, motion to accept the action list as presented. Councilor Brown, all in favor? Carried, thank you. Anybody have any administrative inquiries? Councilor Alderson?
I do. I think this is the right spot. Just for maybe some information, or maybe next council, bring back the possibility of just, how do I phrase this? I'd just like to discuss the possibility of, during these times, that making it available for a councillor to potentially Zoom in from home. And the reason I ask that is because perhaps somebody, it doesn't mean that they're sick, but maybe they know they've been exposed, and so if they're self-quarantining, let's say, so that and they haven't got results back, or maybe they're just self-quarantining, they don't want to spread anything, so they'd be able to Zoom in from home.
Currently, AHS guidelines are, if you've been exposed, help me with that, Dean, there's so many.
It's quite the flow sheet chart.
Yeah, there is.
Okay, so then.
So, if I get this wrong, please correct me. I mean, if you've been in contact with someone who tested positive, you are to isolate for 10 days? 14 days, thank you. Do you want to explain this?
I'd love to. If you've been identified as a close contact with somebody with a confirmed or probable case, you've got to isolate for 14 days from your last known exposure. If at any time you develop symptoms within those 14 days, your 14 days resets.
Okay. Councillor Alderson?
So I know, the province has said if you can work from home, do work at home, and I'm not suggesting that we all just pack up and go home. I'm just saying, maybe we have a child that potentially was around other people at school, things like that. So would that allow us the possibility of Zooming from home if we so chose to for that council meeting?
Your worship, actually, under the procedural bylaw, a councillor can request to attend any council meeting by electronic means, as long as we are aware, by Wednesday before, because we do actually have to notify the public that we're doing that.
It has to be on the agenda.
Perfect. Thank you. I think that answers that.
Councillor Brown?
Sort of my own knowledge, how much effort does it take to set up for a Zoom meeting?
Your worship, I'll have our communication coordinator respond.
Simply getting the login information is very simple. We have a corporate account with the Zoom platform. As you saw earlier today, our live stream system is separate from the Zoom platform. And currently, we're not well set up to have both live stream and Zoom in the same meeting. We've managed to make it work, but it's not ideal. However, that has been a direction at the service level to look into getting a better setup, and we've received some quotes, and I believe it's part of the budget discussion coming up this week.
Okay, so that being said, maybe there comes a day where we all have been exposed, so we all need to be home. So in that case, or a majority of us do, maybe it flips the virtual, we can do Zoom. Otherwise, it would make sense just that the odd person, if they needed to, could phone in, because that seems to be working.
If I can clarify what I just said about the two platforms here, it's all or nothing. If we're all on Zoom, then that's easy to live stream as well, and that meets our legislative requirements to have a public stream for our meetings. It's when we're doing both that it can be tricky, but we are hoping to have some solutions early in the new year.
So just for clarification, is we can arrange a Zoom meeting anytime we want for as long as we want?
Oh, yes, yeah, we don't have any restrictions on it.
Thank you.
Councilor Fraser?
Oh, yes. I got some good news that we have a new resident in Rocky, and they are part of that. It's interesting, the work from home revolution, where people did used to have to live in the big cities and they can now work from home, and we've got very fast internet in some areas in town, and so they have chosen Rocky as their home base. And I was just wondering if maybe that's an avenue we want to explore. I know we're looking at tourism and we're looking at economic development. That might be something we want to look at, targeted, I don't know, whether it be targeted ads on Google or on Twitter, somewhere where these lovely tech people are a lot of the time, just casting a really wide net.
Yeah, it's possible. Yeah, we'll look into it as far as what avenues we can promote the community for, like high-speed internet and relocation.
Also, do we have a welcome wagon? I know there was a welcome wagon when I moved here a long time ago. But does that still exist? Is that a chamber?
Not
Is
so
that
much, no.
No? Okay.
We have packages that, Jeff has that we could, if people are inquiring or, electronically or on paper, we could supply those.
FCSS does do a newcomers.
Correct. Yeah.
You need to go ask for it and be connected with somebody who knows about it, but that is a program that's
Okay, good with that? Any notices of motion? Okay, seeing none. I didn't forget anything this time. It is 3:28, and I'll call a 5-minute break.